Hi, I'm Christopher Walker with Closely Observed Literature, and in this video I'm going to briefly talk about Penelope Fitzgerald's The Bookshop, which has now been made into a film, I notice, and I have absolutely zero interest in seeing the film. Why might you ask? Why don't you want to see the film? Why not? It's only a couple of hours of your life, go and see it. Well, I'll tell you why. The whole beauty of this book is what happens inside the heads of the characters and through the eyes of the writer. And you don't get that in movies. The best translations of books into movies is usually where the plot is central and there is action that you can relate on the screen. This is one of the reasons that Michael Crichton's books tend to make pretty good movies. I mean, Jurassic Park as a book was all right. Not amazing, but it was all right. Jurassic Park, the film, has stood the test of time. They're still making sequels and offshoots now. This, I don't know. Maybe I'll see it if it comes up on Netflix and I have nothing else to do on a Sunday evening or something. I don't know. So the idea of the story is that Florence Green, the central character, decides to move to Hardborough, a small town in East Anglia where the land is very, very flat. I don't know if you've ever been to East Anglia. This is like the Fens sort of country. It's very flat as far as the eye can see. And she moves there to set up a bookshop. She converts an old building that nobody was using into a bookshop, and immediately she runs up against all of this resistance. The locals seem to be against her. There are some powerful people in the town who fight her every step of the way. She has like solicitors against her. Everything that could be against her is against her. So of course, if you're reading a book like this and you don't know Penelope Fitzgerald, as I didn't until I read this, you're probably thinking to yourself, this is one of those triumph against the odds sort of stories, yeah? If you start thinking that after half of this book, you've not been paying attention. This is not the sort of book that is going to end happily. I don't want to discuss the plot much more than that. What I do want to talk about a little bit is just the quality of the language, but also the reason why I read this book in the first place. So the quality of the language, it's sparse and it's spare, and it's like Muriel Spark, to name one writer that I would say is similar. It's curt, it just goes straight through, and there's an economy here that must have taken a huge amount of editing on the part of Penelope Fitzgerald. I mean, nobody writes that way. Whenever people write, and I'm guilty of this as much as anyone else, our words expand to fill the available space. A paragraph that needs to be that long ends up being several pages. And it's very difficult for people to see that and then say, okay, I need to trim it back. They might cut the odd word or so. She cuts it to the bone. And as a result, the writing cuts to the bone. It becomes ultra effective. But also, the thing I wanted to talk about was why I chose to read this book. And I am guilty, as so many men are, of not reading enough women writers. So I was in the bookshop on Queen's Road in Leicester a few years ago, visiting my mum, and looking along the bookshelves, and the name jumped out. And I've always liked the name Penelope, and Fitzgerald seems like a literary kind of surname for some reason. Can't think why that would be. And of course, if it says The Bookshop as the title, that's already going to get my attention, isn't it? But it is generally true that probably, I don't know, like 10% of the books that I read are by women writers. And it's odd. And it makes me wonder if I'm blind to something, or if there genuinely is a difference between the average book by a woman and the average book by a man. And there's something in the latter that speaks to me when the former doesn't. I mean, if you look at the reviews that I've done recently, you go through the channel, you'll find that the majority of the videos are about books by men, with men as the protagonists and men doing things. The women, if they're present at all, are kind of there to provide plot and something that drives the male characters forward. And I know that's not good. So I'm glad that I've read this book. And if you're like me and you're a guy who doesn't read enough books by women, I think you'll get it. You'll get this book and you'll like it, because it doesn't feel like it was written for anybody, but that can be enjoyed by anybody, if that makes sense. So if, like me, you've kind of always thought women's books maybe aren't for me, this is the one that could probably change your mind. Now, I'm not saying that I'm going to rush out and start reading Danielle Steele, but at the same time, I don't read Clive Cussler. So there's quite a lot for me to unpack there. Give me pause for thought. Until next time, thank you very much.